Hey guys, welcome back to this channel. Tyler here. Got another video I want to upload. This time, the topic I want to discuss is Asperger's, but this one is so broad it's going to require several videos, if not like innumerable. I can't speak today. Because that was the weird realization I had after that near-death experience was what the hell it was. Something I had begged to question my entire life. To sum that up, that near-death experience, what it did to me was it had me incorporate every little painful experience that was mainly driven by the things that I loved, mainly like the complexity of like aviation, aerodynamics, the physics of it, And I was always drawn to it, but because of my upbringing, I wasn't able to pursue such a career or life in such, because obviously when your upbringing is very limited, therefore your choices are also limited. And that hurt because I would just ignore it and try to go with it as much as I could. Like, anytime I was feeling really down, the best thing I had for me for ignorance was studying those very, very complex subjects as best as I could, to the point where I could actually visualize scenarios or phenomenon. I'm trying not to plug the mic like I did the last time. And before I move on, I'm sorry I have to do this with my phone, and I'm sorry it's not like in a nice setting or whatever. It's just what I've got. My other camera, my computer does not recognize its format, so I'm stuck with this for right now. All right, so Asperger's. Best way I can sum it up is it was like I was meant to like find aviation, and that was something I always questioned in my life. Like when I was questioning everything about how lost society seemed to me, I started questioning the idea of love, because that was when I got into the dark side of philosophy, because I was just like, where did that come from? Why was it there? Because nobody in my family was tied to it, and if that was the case, I wouldn't have had such a hard time, because everyone I've seen in my life had some sort of tie which helped them through it, but I had nothing of the such. And then of course they would just say, well, just work your way through it. I wish I could be that ignorant. Thing is, people don't want context. They look at you at face value and don't want to know anything that brought you to where you were. Same could be said after that near-death experience, when I found out not found out, but when I had that like sudden feeling of self-appreciation and love for all the painful things I pushed through. People didn't want to know why I was so happy. They just condoned it as I was insane. Which was the fool's journey, I guess I could say. Because I didn't know what I was in for. So Asperger's, what I had realized after the near-death experience was because in 2020 I started breaking shells that I thought I would never ever get to break through. And it was so coincidental in the fact that at that point in my life, I lost everything I ever hoped of seeing in my future. I was just like, I'm not going to ever see what I want to based upon where I'm at, my age, and how society works nowadays. It was cutting off every little part of me that was human that I wanted, but felt I would never experience it. Things as simple as like having a family, because now capitalism has basically cut that off to the point where you can't have a good marriage unless you're making $200,000-$300,000 a year, which is just fucking ridiculous. And there's a reason for that. It's because comfort and not having that risk of losing a job and then ending up on the street and ending up like Dick and Jane, the movie. But what I realized, because it wasn't like that feeling came from nowhere, I was free to think, because whatever happened that month after the near-death experience, it freed me from all fear, pain, depression. I had nothing. It was just, I was free to just enjoy looking at like the trees around me and the world that we have. And then through those days, I was learning through human instincts and why they were there, anxiety, fear of like a threat. And I realized that no one's just going to come up, walk to you and kill you, even though some people do that because they don't value their life, so they don't value yours. But that set me up to be the fool. But by being the fool, I learned how other people worked. Mainly, if they see you happy, they want to see you sad. Of course it hurt, but it was funny because I had this value that I'd learned, and it's like, you're not taking that from me. Have fun with that. Do whatever you want, but I'm trying to get into the whole notion about Aspergers and psychology here. The biggest issue I saw was, well, it was discovered in Germany or Austria by Hans Asperger. And it's funny because I was reading books about it, and he said that he did not like the idea of labeling children to their face because he knew that they would embody it or whatever, they would think they were weird, and he didn't want that. He just wanted to understand why they were the way that they were, and that forsaken, misconstrued word autism, which me and my friend joke about all the time, because whenever we were labeled with it, people looked at us like we were just disabled beyond our means, and that's not the case. But then, of course, with what society perceives it as, a person that's labeled with it ends up embodying it and suffering because of it, and they don't realize they're just as human as everybody else. Problem is, it's a beautiful kind of a divine thing about how humanity would break the mold of society when the mold of society is so flawed, and now we've gotten to the point where technology has run its course to where we really don't need to advance any further, other than like if we want to do space travel. Yeah, that's a good thing, but we really don't need to like advance our computers anymore unless you just want a life where you grow up and then play video games for the rest of your being. Kind of one of those parts of my life where in 2020 I was playing DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, flying the Huey, and it hurt me when I was flying it for like an hour at a time to think, is this all I'm ever going to experience? Because I never wanted it that way. I always dreamed of being able to fly a helicopter just for the enjoyment of it and knowing how complex it is and the beauty and how it works. And never was I able to do that other than once, which was in Florida. I tried to do it one day, and I set my goal on working my ass off one week, and then my boss cut my hours. I was just like, that figures. But it was losing everything I loved. I died or had that near-death experience, or just a moment of realizing how fragile life is, basically, where I was just like, I could have died, but I don't see any worth. What the hell is going on here? But it happened at such a point where I learned everything I needed to, where I started finding a social circle, the first, like, wall break, so to speak, where I was just finding my place where people actually appreciated me. They thought I was cool, even though in my head I was just like looking around going, oh God, what's this, what's that? Or just like not knowing how to speak up about what I felt. And it was really difficult. Honestly, having a few friends of mine tell me things, and then after that whole coming like to self-love feeling, I had one person that told me something, is when she told me I was an empath, and I doubted that because it was just like, yeah, sure, but what does that just mean? I'm down to be or I'm set up to be used and abused my entire life to the point where I can't speak up about the truth or the fallacies of this modern world. It was just like, cool, I'm an empath, so I'm just going to get walked on for the rest of my life, and that's it. And that's what it woke me up out of, was now I'm not seen as the empath because now I speak up. And problem is, I care about feelings and I care when people are hurt, but when they hurt me, or when people are intending to do you harm by spreading lies or some sort of judgment about you that they don't know anything about, they never ask for the context, it's giving you a sight into their being, something that they're avoiding in their past. And honestly, knowing that and saying that out loud, I know that'll hurt a few people if they've done that, but the problem is a lot of self-judgment is useless. Like I've judged myself for certain things I've done in my past, and I hated it and I didn't like it, and then it woke me up out of it saying those were nothing wrong. You were learning through this world, because like I said in the first one, I think, we're born into this world and we're not given a guidebook of how to do it. Just a bunch of like subliminal programming about what this world is and how to find your place in it. And that structure of finding your place in this world is failing. And it's failing exponentially as every year grows. And I cannot imagine the labyrinth of life, if I wasn't to say this, what younger generations would be going through, given how social media has basically changed humans beyond human, and it's made them digital. And that's part and parcel of what they say the Matrix is. And I saw that after that coming to love experience. God damn it. But I was just thinking about redoing the video, but I need to get back on track with Asperger's. See, this is the problem when I can't have someone to speak with. My thoughts just branch off, and I apologize. But I took down these two things down to their very cores. Language, intended to transfer intelligence from one to another. And there's that misconception that if someone's intelligent, they're better than you, or they're worth more than you. No, that's not where intelligence. I don't like thinking that's intelligence. Intelligence is when someone knows something that other people don't. It's their duty to share it. When someone knows something about life that they don't share, that's just being conservative in a kind of way where, well, one person knows, another can know, but a lot of people don't do that, and a lot of things are confusing to some people, but it's really rather simple, because that was kind of the weird programming to me. Was I wanted to understand this world as to its simple core, to where it's not like all predicated on mathematics, which was taught in such ways that didn't make any sense because the problems were never applied to things. But language down to its very core is just meant for a transfer of intelligence, wisdom, knowledge. And when you look at the social structure and you have friends or people around you that start talking ill about someone regardless of context, you wonder why they're doing it. And the only time I would ever talk to someone or talk about someone behind their back was if I was worried about them, which would then follow with me going to their face and wondering if they're okay. But a lot of people will spread gossip about people, and given the digital age, it's given people this like comfort to talk anything negative about people behind their back without any fear of repercussions. And then people attach too much meaning to the words, so they take it internally. When they really, if someone was really intelligent, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't just resort to that. There's something inside of them that's missing. And resorting to like online bullying, cyberbullying, that's just as unintelligent as you can get. That's why I see a lot of people that end up on YouTube and they get depressed because they start getting a lot of hate mail or comments. It's just like, you got to realize who you're talking to, a digital person, in a sense, because they're not to your face. They're not willing to argue with you in person. Not argue insofar as having a discussion, a civil discussion, which is not what the modern day is about anyway. It's all about like, no, my way or the highway kind of ideology, and that just separates people. Or like people that think the machine, meaning America, or the way that developed countries work, is all perfect. It doesn't need to be fixed. If I had to say one thing needed to be fixed in regards to Asperger's as well as other people, it's the education system. It is just horrendously flawed. And it's predicated on closing the minds of people. It doesn't want people to think, because if they think, then they'll figure it out and it'll break. Problem is, there's a way for it to work, and it's not this way, because now social media, the advent of the internet, all the information people want to learn about, like painful things, good things, wisdom, whatever, what have you, is all on the internet. And that's all I would ever use it for when I was younger, is just looking up really complex things, trying to understand them. There was nothing I would do to, like, how do I say it, ignore the suffering of life, because I would just immerse myself in some sort of thing that just blew my hair back, regardless of how small or what little I had at the time, making wings out of cardboard and such, because understanding aerodynamics was one of my main interests growing up. But about the language, and then we've attached labels to things such as Exhibit A, Asperger's, meaning psychological traits or behavioral traits of children were noticed at younger ages, attached to them, and then they went through a means of treatment. One being just environmental changes, and then the other one being pharmaceutical, which I do not agree with. That's something I thank my mother to this day about Like, the one reason I moved away from my hometown was because they wanted to get me on Ritalin, and she wasn't for it. And all through life, I was wondering maybe I should have, but now I'm thanking God that I never got onto it. Because I've seen what it's done to my friends that also were diagnosed and how they ended up because of it. And they don't like it one bit. But the environmental changes are almost just as bad, where you're in a social structure like high school, then you're sanctioned off into like a small classroom. This doesn't speak on behalf of all high schools because mine was working this way, but I haven't seen what other ones do. Sanctioned me off into a separate classroom to which I was immersed with kids that were diagnosed like me. Some of them had a lot of anger issues. And a lot of it happens to be like, the more unstable the family, the more unstable the child. Could have been with my concerns as well, like taking out my anxiety from family outside to the world. And that just reflects just the instability of how families are predicated nowadays and how much worse it might get, provided people don't really start looking at the truth of it. And of course, now we're just predicated on running from pain and going to the instant gratification, i.e. like hookup culture and all the, like, if you feel down or lonely, just pull up porno. Is that gonna fix it? No. But Aspergers should have never been diagnosed or treated the way that it is. And all these organizations that perpetuate this, like, this awareness or treatment of the ailment, which is not an ailment, it's an ability, and it's one that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemies, especially in these times. They have this kind of, how do I say it? Ideology of fixing it through genetics because it's a problem and it needs to be fixed. Why? Because we don't fit into your machine. I'm so sorry for that. I'm not so sorry for that. Because I'd have just ended up making like $40,000 a year and not having a family or anything worth living for other than just going to work, going to sleep, going to work, going to sleep. And that was when my life just became a blur to me. Was whenever I got into those states, it was just like, well, today is like yesterday. Great. And that's when the meltdowns would start. And there's a reason for that, because there's nothing to see that's of growth unless you're like creating something or doing a good to the world. I don't see anything worthwhile in just going to a factory every day for the rest of your life, barely making enough money to be comfortable, so to speak. But then again, you're perpetuated with this internal loneliness, so you have all these material objects to fill your life with, and there's that saying, you don't own things, things end up owning you, and there's a very big truth in that, where I've seen a lot of people go down that path, and it's not pretty. And God forbid they lose it, they lose their identity, and it's not pretty. Like, I've lost everything in my life, and then it really rang true to that statement of, you don't need anything, you've got everything right here. Like, I don't mind. I'll just turn the camera around for a moment, looking at that river. Like, that's just beautiful to me. Finally. Dying to, like, be able to look at beauty like that and just not even care. Sorry, gas coming up. But I hope there was something to take from this. This topic is very, very complex, and knowing where to go with it is very difficult. Especially when you have no one to converse with about this, because God forbid I can't bring any of this up to anybody in my hometown where I learned everything about the social structure, because they're just avoiding the pain. And they don't want to dig deep. They don't want to have the conversations. They don't want to know things they don't, because they think everything they know now is fine, but I can see it in their eyes that they're not fine with it. It's created this like cage I'm in, so to speak. But luckily I have the internet, and I've seen how many people so far in just 2 weeks' time saw my video and appreciated it. I'm glad. I'm happy that it's so-called vibed with you. But to finish this off, so I can add a little detail to it, that near-death experience was nothing more than me riding my motorcycle. I was going about 5 miles an hour down this path, guiding the way for my cousin who was behind me on a scooter. And I saw this little green strip in front of me, to which, oops, I'm blocking that damn mic. And I had the instinct, or something in intuition related, tell me something bad was about to happen, and I look back at my cousin and I just say, I am fucked. I knew she couldn't hear me, But the weirdest part about that day that begged me to start questioning things was the fact that I lost consciousness before I even hit the ground. And then, to add on to the weirdness of that whole scenario, was when I woke up washing off my hand in the sink. And then I looked up, and that's when my mother and my uncle walked into the house. I was just like, oh, this is weird. Where did I go? And that last month was the last day of pain I'd felt until that whole love story of love and loss came about. And that's when I started feeling some pain that I've never felt before in my life. I don't think I mentioned anything about that. That was more so discussed. I don't think I've done a good video on that yet, but I've written a lot about it. And a lot of people like it. Some people hate it because they just don't have any concept of walking in someone else's shoes. And that's how weird that love story was walking in her shoes for just a month's time. And then it revealed to me who her friends really were, and they are not pretty. But other than that, it's made me like appreciate all the pain that I feel sometimes, or all the joy that I feel, because it all leads somewhere better. Like anytime you feel that pain, just do what you love for just the moment. Don't worry about any anxiety you have about like what society wants of you today or tomorrow or in the years ahead. And think about you and how you can help people or yourself. Don't feel alone in this, because nobody is. That was kind of the weird part about that near death, was I was never alone. Even though they want you to think that, because that makes you someone that is a consumer. So, I'll give you another view of this river, because it is just dead gorgeous today. Hopefully it's not too shimmery, but hope you guys have a good day, and I hope this didn't go on too long or branch off too far. It's really, really difficult to talk about. Not like I said pain-wise, it's more so just very complex. So, I hope you took something from this, and again, please let me down below what you'd like to hear about, because I've got Aspergers, human psychology, that I had to study, because I wanted to understand what Aspergers was. Now I do, and now I want it broken, because the way they're going about treating it is completely immoral. And the fact that they made $36 billion off of it, give me $1 million and I'll turn that thing into more. It's ridiculous how they treat it like an ailment that needs to be fixed, and it's not. But making kids think that they're other, they end up becoming the other, and they suffer from it. So, I hope you have a good day today. I'll do my best to do the same. I'm just going to go for another drive. And I'm, again, sorry I have to do this in my car. It's just all I've got, and my other camera doesn't work for my computer. So, before I drone on again, I hope you guys have a nice day. And please let me know what you think, or anything you'd like me to talk about, so that I can stop being so broad in my subject. I want to really narrow it down so that I'm not going past 20 minutes per video. Maybe like 10-minute video subjects, but alright, have a good day, guys.